Sure. Thank you, Kurt. Thanks for inviting me to talk a little bit. I was born in upstate New York, in a little town uh, next to the city of Troy, New York. So um, my family was a large family, but also a pretty musical family for the most part. Popular music, jazz and classical music, but mostly uh, a family involved in popular music
Hmm.
and jazz. I mean, my father was a jazz singer, and not as a profession, but he had been when he was young, and then he became a ended up going into advertising. But he was an entertainer, and then I had many members of my family that were keyboard players. So I was brought up a lot. I was brought up in a milieu surrounded by American popular song and this kind of American swing song tradition. Um, and I was also, we were uh, started on instruments when we were very young. So I started playing piano when I was like a little kid, and all of us took various instruments. And I was never that interested in the piano, but I took it for a long time. And
But you had to endure it nonetheless.
I endured it, and I was happy later that I learned what I did, and I had a pretty decent piano teacher, um, who was, I don't know how he put up with me, but he did. I didn't do what he wanted me to do most of the time, but I also became interested in playing the drums. I guess when I was you know a young kid, and I was very interested in rock and roll music at the time, and I had a lot of older siblings, so that was a big the music that they brought into the home was a big influence on me. I mean, my older sisters brought in lots of blues and
Mm.
rock and roll and jazz. This is all in like the early, mid, and late '60s. Like I was exposed to everything that young people in America were listening to at that time. One of my sisters was a very accomplished folk singer, actually, and she was kind of part of the folk scene in New York State. So she was really she exposed me to a lot of folk music, and there was a lot of that being played around the house. And so um, I got interested in jazz music through my parents, and then there were a lot of great jazz players around where I grew up, so I was able to study jazz with some really serious musicians like Nick Rignola, who was a great baritone sax player. He actually lived in Albany, which is not too far from my house. And he taught jazz theory lessons and jazz lessons at like Hilton's Music in downtown Troy whenever he was in town, which was kind of amazing. So you could avail yourself of these kind of.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So, but by the time I was about, I guess, 13 or so, I got interested in orchestral music, orchestral percussion for some reason. I don't even remember why. I think I just was always fascinated by it. I watched Bernstein on TV when I was a little kid, like everybody, millions of other kids in America at the time. Um, and I was, exposed to the music then, I suppose, and there was a lot of it around my house. So I didn't really know what to do, and my high school, I guess when I was a freshman in high school, my band director said, well, why don't you just, you know, you should take lessons with somebody. And I said, well, how do I do that? And he said, call the orchestra in Albany and ask them if they have somebody to teach. So I called the orchestra, and they told me, yes, just study with our principal, our timpani player. And so anyway, long story short, I found this man, Richard Al Bagley, who became my mentor, and he was a young guy at the time. He had just graduated from Rensselaer Polytechnic as a physicist.
Oh, wow.
He was a he was a brilliant guy and a brilliant musician, but also just a wig about science. And I was the first student. I was the first kid he ever taught. He had never taught before, so I became sort of an experiment for him.
it seems like it was a pretty successful experiment.
Well, he was a wonderful guy. He was
Yeah.
very, very, very generous. I mean, my family, we had no money, and so my lessons were basically free.
Uh-huh.
I went, I went to his house almost every day and hung out and I'd get a lesson and we would listen to music and he would, you know, he put the score. I mean, I was 13 and he put the score of Wozzeck in my hand. He said, "Here, take this home and look at it." I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
But he was that kind of guy. So he exposed me to, Second Viennese School and then also the post-war European guys, Messiaen, Stockhausen, Boulez. I mean, I was listening to and looking at all that music. So before I even knew what it was, really. So anyway, that was. I stayed with him all through high school before I went away to conservatory. So he was an amazing guy, amazing teacher, and without him, I would be nothing. I don't know what I would have done without him.
Oh.
Because I was sort of directionless, but music was real direction for me. So that helped tremendously, and he gave me an unbelievably kind of sophisticated education.
Sure. It sounds like it was like a relationship that was more than just sort of the typical, teacher-student relationship. It was one that was pretty respectful and also pretty deep,
Yeah.
meaningful. I mean, not all student-teacher relationships are like that at all, especially early on.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he taught me about, he sort of taught me what it means to be, he was the first person that I'd ever met that was extraordinarily eccentric. I mean, he was a extremely eccentric person. And I learned a lot about that kind of eccentricity and how helpful it can be.
Yeah, the word sophistication is a really sort of funny little, I call it a but word, meaning that it sort of becomes a way to erase having a real conversation about the depth and the level of possibility that's inside of a piece in a type of music.
Uh-huh.
It's like when people say something, they go on, and then they say, but. And it sort of like erases almost everything that you just said. And sophistication, I mean, you don't realize how, like, when you say a piece of music, a simple piece of music is sophisticated, but then, people don't really understand what that actually means. It sort of erases the actual, the real value of simple music.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, for me, the sophistication is encompasses the the feel of the piece, the swing of it, the tuning, the intonation, how it affects you that way. Like I said before, physiologically,
Right.
the performance, the actual physical performance, the level of playing, all that stuff. That's what I mean. It's all. It's all. You listen to Hank Williams play the guitar. So, I mean, it's very sophisticated playing. I mean, the swing is so deep, and it's. Hank Williams. I don't know. It could be any.
So you're a music director at the conference, and I was wondering if you could explain what the music director does at the conference.
Well, I think since since I arrived there, I kind of made my own. I mean, I was told what the music director does, and then I sort of changed it as I went along. I think basically the way I see it is, or the way I've developed, what it's developed into is I maintain a list of ensemble players first of all, and I make sure that people are available and that they want to play, and keep changing the list as people come and go. That's very important. And then once everybody's in place, then I get the find out who the fellows are each year, and then I start to correspond with them and find out what their plan is. And they sometimes will write me and ask me what what might be expected of them, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to assign, then as their music comes in, I have to look at the instrumentation and then assign all the parts in a fair way,
Mm-hmm.
so that all the players get a chance to play. And it's kind of, that's tricky in and of itself. And then having done that, having made all the assignments and seeing what the fellows' pieces are going to be, and then I start to think about programming around those pieces. So there are four programs that the ensemble plays the fellows' music in. So in those programs, we have to fill those out with other pieces, chamber music pieces, or and that's always been. Those pieces have always been pieces from the standard repertoire, or more older pieces. I think when I first got there, the idea was you couldn't play any contemporary music because you didn't want to interfere with the music of the fellows, the new music that was being presented. So,
I see.
but we changed that over time because the
Yeah.
fellows actually wanted to hear their music up against some of the great pieces in the repertoire.
Sure, sure.
And they had, there was no fear about that. I don't know where that came from, but and then we change. So I maintain, I try to do that programming, and then I program as much as I feel comfortable programming, and then the rest of it we program when we get on site.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the whole time that I've been programming those pieces, I'm in touch with the ensemble to get ideas for them. People recommend pieces that they'd like to do, or they recommend pieces that might be interesting to do. There are a few pieces that I want personally to do, and then I fill out the rest with their requests, and then assign all those parts. And then I have to get all the music for all that stuff together. And I do that, and then I guess once I'm there, then I have to start rehearsing every day.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty intense schedule once the conference begins. I have to say, it's sort of relentless in terms of rehearsal and management and just production decisions.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it's it has it has a life of its own. It kind of goes
Yep.
along. There are people that are that sort of that I've leaned on over the years to help me maintain the pace there, and so people handle certain personnel issues as they come up, and I have people that post stuff for me, and I have people that work on getting music if we need to get some special requests. People go to libraries, people go on IMSLP and print stuff out if it's needed. And I mean, people in the ensemble have been very helpful that way. They also help me maintain the drive page where we post everything. But the rehearsals, the rehearsals are pretty intense because we have to do those. We have to prepare the 4 concerts, and we have to prepare 2 pieces by each of the one by each of the guest composers that we play on their evening. They have a Thursday night evening, so we play Wednesday night, then we play one piece on Thursday night, and then we play another concert on Saturday night. So yeah, it's a lot of rehearsals. But the idea of I really worked hard over the years to build an ensemble that goes really quick, that can go as quickly as I do.
Mm-hmm.
I am not. I mean, I've been conducting for a long time, and I work at a very fast pace.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, I was, part of the reason why I became a conductor is because, I played so much new music for so many years, and I was in every major ensemble in New York, and then ended up conducting all those ensembles. But as a player, I saw how bad it could be, how bad the performances could be, and ill-prepared.
Ill-prepared and just uninspired, uninsightful, unconnected.
Yeah.
There's nothing, actually, I think it's worse than an uninspired performance of a piece from the standard rep, quite honestly.
To me, it's the same. To me, it's the same thing. I mean,
It's the same thing. For some reason, I think that because people know, not that there's, not that I know what I'm talking about, but like if you hear a really crappy performance of a piece by Schumann, you have an entire body of performances by Schumann, of that piece by Schumann, where you're sort of fill in the spaces. Whereas if you hear a crappy performance of a piece you've never heard before, the only thing you have to go on is that crappy performance. And
yeah,
people are just sort of like, well, that piece sucked. And it's like, you have no idea whether it sucked or not
right. No,
because it's a crappy performance.
yeah, that's a good point. The thing is, they work on the same level that I work on. They go as fast as I do. They're never, and they just implement. They implement what I ask for immediately. It's like
Right.
like driving a really nice car.
The conference really does become sort of a pivotal and important time for a lot of people, no question.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So I'm happy. My overall is, it was a positive experience for me. I was happy to be able to do what I could for as long as I was there, and I was always flattered that Mario would think that I could do it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
that's it. I don't know what the future will be, but it's
No one knows what the future will be. Let's hope the future is not what it is right now.
yeah, it could be. I mean, next summer it could be another online.
Yeah, I do not want that. I don't think anybody wants that.
No, maybe they'll get a vaccine or something by then.
Right. Well, let's wrap up, and I will just say thank you very much for doing this conversation. I appreciate your time. And
Sure.